Hi everyone, welcome to Chalchitra Talks. I'm Vaani, and this week I want to recommend to you Insomniac City, New York, Oliver Sacks and Me by Bill Hayes. But before I get into the book, I want to talk to you about Oliver Sacks. Oliver Sacks was a British neurologist, and I think you might recognize him from his works, like The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat and Hallucinations and Awakenings. So he passed away in the August of 2015 because of cancer, and his partner at that time, Bill Hayes, wrote a beautiful memoir that is The Insomniac City, which is dedicated not only to Oliver and the relationship they shared, but also to the city of New York. So Bill had moved to New York from San Francisco after his 16-year-long partner passed away because of heart attack. He wanted to get a fresh start, and yes, slowly but steadily he did manage to overcome his grief, and in this process he fell in love with New York and eventually with Oliver. He also realized that New York, the city, and love are very similar. Both of them are demanding and difficult at the same time, but if you welcome them with open arms unguardedly, they will reward you. What emerges from this book is a beautiful love letter to the city of New York and also to Oliver. It is a reminder that happiness and heartbreak are inseparable. They go hand in hand. I grew up in a society that always frowns upon the idea of same-sex relationship. But underneath the blanket of the beautiful love story of Oliver Sacks and Bill Hayes in this book, you will realize how ordinary, in a good way, their love was. Simple, subtle, and remarkable in its own beautiful way. Two different people coming together to love each other. I think it is quite an unpopular opinion, but this book made me realize that love is not something that can be measured in a simple space-time frame. You'll have to do much better than that. Now, if you're familiar with the legacy that Oliver Sacks leaves behind, I'm pretty certain you might be wondering, how can a book do justice to the being of Oliver Sacks? Bill Hayes invites us to witness what it was like to be in love with Oliver Sacks, to be his friend, his companion. And of course, the loss of Oliver Sacks is deep. He was and is irreplaceable. But Bill Hayes beautifully shows us how to celebrate the lives of people instead of mourning them. He chooses to not use words like someone passed away or someone died. He chooses to remember them as people who have disappeared. So one night, Oliver and Bill were meeting on the roof of their apartment building, and Oliver said out loud as he was heading back downstairs, "I am glad I am not dead." This came out rather loudly as he is a bit deaf. Even so, he looked surprised by his own utterance, as if it were something he was feeling but didn't really mean to say aloud. A thought turned into an exclamation. "I am glad you're not dead too," said a neighbor, taking up the refrain. "I am glad we're all not dead," said another. There followed a spontaneous rising of glasses on the rooftop, a toast to the setting sun, a toast to us. And this is like one of my favorite passages from the book. Now, I suppose it's a cliche to say you're glad to be alive, that life is short, but to say you're glad to be not dead requires a specific intimacy with loss that comes only with age and deep experience. One has to know not simply what dying is like, but to know death itself in all its absoluteness. After all, there are many ways to die: peacefully, violently, suddenly, slowly, happily, unhappily, too soon. But to be dead, one either is or is not. The same cannot be said of aliveness, of which there are countless degrees. One can be alive but half asleep or half noticing as the years fly. No matter how fully oxygenated the blood and brain or steadily the heart beats. Fortunately, this is a reversible condition. One can learn to be alert to the extraordinary and press pause to memorize moments of every day. So there is a diary entry in this book dated April 2nd, 2015. And there are a lot of diary entries that Bill has shared with us, but this one in particular was something that moved me to happy tears because it was such a simple yet a beautiful, intimate moment shared by two people in a relationship. So, Oliver, when I accidentally dropped a carton of cherry tomatoes on the floor. How pretty, do it again. And so I do. The process of dropping the carton of cherry tomatoes on the floor by Bill was so beautiful that Oliver asked him to do it again. And Bill obliged him by doing so yet again. If you're someone who has moved from a small town to a big city, you will come to appreciate this book even more because Bill talks about regular people that he comes across in New York. People in their own intimate moments not realizing that they are being observed. And some of them, yes. So we've shared the link to this book in the description box below and you can check it out there. And I hope you liked this recommendation. And I will be back with another recommendation for you next week.